Hello, everybody. So, I'm doing a new thing here where I talk about Playboy mysteries that maybe are mysteries or maybe not mysteries. So, I'd like to get into the subject at hand, which would be Miss November 1992, Stephanie Adams. So, it seems to be that she jumped out of a building with her son, from my understanding, is what the news said. Now, before I get into my topic at hand, I want to say everything in this video is just a personal opinion, a view, and I'm going off public stuff that has been said about this whole ordeal. I'm looking tweets, just public things and public knowledge of things of sorts. So this is not based on any facts, just a personal perspective of what I think of it, and just a rundown on a little bit of everything that has to do with Stephanie Adams. So thank you for joining me, and I want to just get right into it. I'm not going to get cliche and say, hey, subscribe, like, and comment. I feel like that's a lot of work. So if you want to subscribe, that's cool. And before I get into it, this is going to sound real cheesy, but if you could pick up a keychain from my website at justafrenzy.com, they are on sale, and they do have free shipping anywhere in the world, so please consider one. So Stephanie Adams was a Playboy Playmate, Miss November 1992, and she had quite a few controversial topics at hand that she's basically, well, how do I put this? Kind of a shit disturber, and maybe had some problems of her own. It seems to be was an author. She looked like she released astrology books here, and I'm looking back and forth as I'm talking to this. She did some astrology books, it looks like, and she released some books independently, so it looks like she was heavily interested in astrology and telling your future. And I wonder if anybody even got any of those books, and if you did, were they accurate at the time? So she had quite a few problems going on in her personal life that I would like to think, in my opinion, she maybe created out of being a shit disturber. It seems to be that she was suing the New York City Police Department, and she did win that case, but however, I do see two sides of the story here. On both ends, I do believe that she did have some kind of good standing relationship with the police department. At some point, there are pictures of her hanging out, doing things, and look like she's having a great time with them. So I was a little confused as to, when I did my research, when she decided to sue them and won her lawsuit later on. She also did make some tweets that I think were maybe questionable now that we look back at things, or maybe not, because it is kind of a mystery what she was talking about on her Twitter some time ago, and there's a picture of it I'm looking at right now. She was talking about, well, I'll just read it. It says, the only person who should ever be ashamed in a domestic abuse incident is the abuser. Stand tall and stay strong. Find the right support and always always maintain your safety. Get help for you and your child now to no longer be a victim. And I'm not too sure what she mentioned, why she's mentioning all this. It seems to be the husband she was married to at the time. He seemed to be, I don't know, I'd like to say the provider in her relationship. And mind you, I'm sure she did have some of her own money, but it did look like she did maybe rely on him of sorts. He seemed to be very successful in his business of fields of sorts. But I'm not too sure about him. I haven't done too much research on him, other than the fact that, he also lost a child as well in this whole ordeal. And I think that's one of the bigger facts at hand. And quite a few people were mentioning in the comments on some of the videos about her that they think it is more sinister than what it is. And I'm not too sure how I feel about that. It feels like it's a mystery, but at the same time, it also feels like it could be not a mystery. It could be a simple fact of some mental health issues at hand, and maybe led her to leap. Well, push her son out first and then herself, which is kind of disturbing to say the least. I can't imagine the pain her husband and her family are going through. Probably to this day, I'd imagine it still weighs strong on their mind. I'm sure of it. It said something online about how she did not leave the hotel she was at the whole time, and her son and her were not caught on film leaving that day when she leaped out of the building as well. So I guess there would be that subject at hand, and considering this is New York City, I'm just assuming there's a bunch of cameras on each side of that building from other buildings, maybe perhaps could see anything more that's maybe more sinister or a mystery of sorts, because a lot of people in the comments were really hinting strongly that they feel like it is more than just a simple case of suicide. Now that is just people's opinions. They are not going off facts. It does look like the case has been closed and resolved from whomever resolved it. Mind you, I don't know much as a Canadian, so I don't know if it was solved by whatever department, but it looks like it has been legally solved. But that still does not change people's opinions and maybe the views they have on this whole subject. And it is really a crying shame that she took her son's life. I can't help but feel some of the subjects at hand that she was talking about prior to her death, just in her own personal life. She would go on Twitter and she was suing the New York State Department of the police, and she was suing her husband. So she was just suing and suing and suing. It looked like maybe she was a clout chaser of sorts and was starting to realize the attention she could gravitate quickly in the world of social media online. I'm just having a sip here. I have quite a bit to say about this, because it does look very odd to one person. You know, she seems like she's a very caring mom. You know, one article I read said she did have her own issues and she was going through things that were affecting her mental health, but not to the point that they would think she would do something like this. Now, we also got to keep in mind mental health does affect anybody and everybody, and this could also be, from just my opinion, just some personal demons and problems of her own, because she took her own son's life. I mean, I don't know how to even approach that subject and talk about it, because suicide is very, very touchy if this is the case, which it has been proven to be legally. And a lot of people are going to have their opinions like myself. And one news article I did read was giving a crazy rundown theory, and it was pretty much batshit crazy from what I was reading on it. I mean, a little bit too much dribble, if you ask me. But it did hint at some of the things that she was going through personally, the demons that she was dealing with mental health wise, and I'd like to think that maybe this played a big factor in her unfortunate demise with her son. But there is also quite a few other subjects at hand with Stephanie Adams, Miss November 1992 here. You got to remember, she was suing people left, right, and center, and it wasn't like she was just suing some random average Joe. She was definitely suing people and maybe just causing a ruckus when she shouldn't have been. And I'm not saying that played a factor in her death, but maybe she was weighing heavy on all of the things that were going on through her personal life, and there is no facts out there to say that it is something more sinister to it. No, but I don't know. It feels weird to look at some of these subjects at hand. Like I read to you her tweets before, and her son was about 7 years old, it says, and this whole ordeal happened in 2018. I don't think somebody in their right mind would push their son out of the window or wherever it was unless they weren't mentally not they weren't mentally all there, because that is a pretty fucked up thing to do, if you ask me. I don't want to say that there is something more sinister to this, but the only reason why I do believe is because she had so many people coming at her with so many things, and it seemed to be she was pissing off the wrong people by just talking too much shit and maybe exaggerating things. Now, she did sue the New York City Police Department for an issue of them harassing her and her son at the time, and she won, so obviously the law felt the need to compensate her. But we don't really know the subjects at hand about all that, to what kind of violence or whatever that was used against her at the time. So I'm really confused why she would go to that extent when it seemed to be she had a good relationship with the New York City Police Department, and she seemed to be actively involved with them and seemed to really carry the views of that she's for the police, and she seemed like to have a positive influence with them at the time, and maybe she just felt the need to make a quick buck. I can't say for sure. No one knows what was going through her mind, but she did win quite a good amount of money for that. So I think this whole point of this video is, it seems like it's either one of two things. She could have either committed suicide, like it says, or something more sinister went on, and I'd like to think it's a toss-up with this, because she pissed off so many people. You almost feel like maybe the cards were held against her and she knew it was coming and she decided to jump, or maybe it was all these emotions playing on her, and who knows, maybe at the time she wasn't taking her medications. That's just a personal opinion. That's not based off fact, but there have been many cases where people have not been on their medications and they do just outrageous, wild, crazy things that they normally wouldn't have, especially if they had been off them for quite some time. And I don't know what Stephanie Adams's case is in that department, but I don't think her family feels that it's just some kind of simple suicide, from what I did read on one news article, and don't quote me word for word on this, but they don't think somebody like herself would just kill her son and then herself. And now, like I said before in the news article, it said something about she did not leave her hotel room that whole day. So was she planning on doing this? Is there anybody that maybe knows her that can say and vouch and say, hey, I was in communication with her that day? We don't know this because there's not been too many articles out there, or too many people just coming out and saying their side of the story and giving their own thoughts and personal perspective on it. So there's that, but there is quite a few articles on this, and the one article I did read, it seemed to be pretty batshit crazy. It was just a wild conspiracy theory that was coming to no ends, to no means when reading it, and usually I like to keep an open mind with those. Some of them can be true and some of them aren't true, and it just seemed like a batshit crazy theory. If you've read it online, it's a whole lot of dribble. It just seems to be coincidental that she was into politics and just had her own personal views like anybody else in America when it comes to politics, and she was no different than any other American, giving her voice, voicing her opinions and which side she's on for what presidential campaign. And I think maybe if she did have some severe mental health issues, I met some people before that have had some mental health issues that talk about politics and they just get right crazy into it, and so it can never be a good thing. So I'd like to do some research. I like to do research on this whole Stephanie Adams ordeal, but there's really not much out there when I Google. It's just the basic facts at hand that are out there, and talking about her death. And my condolences do go out to her husband and anybody that knew her and her son, because they're the ones that aren't here anymore, and the people that knew them are really the ones that are suffering now, because I'm sure there's days that are not very good for them, and they probably think about them every day. So we have to keep that in mind. And I just wanted to maybe also keep Stephanie Adams' memory alive, because I feel like she was Miss November in 1992, and she was one of the few black playmates that are out there. And as we all know, if you're a Playboy fan, there are not many women of color that are playmates, so there are very far in between in the Playboy world. So it is great to see somebody of color, a black woman, rock it. So I'm glad to see that she got to be a part of such a great thing before she ultimately tragically died. I mean, my own personal opinion on this whole Stephanie Adams ordeal, if you want to know, it seems like she was mentally not right for quite some time, and writing tons of astrology books, and just, I'm sure she had some interesting things to say in those. And I'm not saying, because she wrote astrology books, that played a factor in her mental health. Maybe it did, but it seemed to be she was kind of all over the place, suing people, saying the wrong things. It seems like her husband at the time seemed like a very well put together, well poised man, very professional. I think she maybe felt jealous and felt the need to maybe make him look bad by suing him. And people like that are, they're shit disturbers. And if she had mental health issues on top of that, then that explains a lot. But I also do see other people's cause of concern where they would think that there's more to it than just her and her son jumping out of a building. I mean, I think there's always going to be people out there that will have those opinions and raise an eyebrow and think it is something more than what it is. I'm just giving my personal opinion and personal perspective on it, but it's kind of like a 50-50 draw with Stephanie Adams. You can't help but feel that she was having some issues. And the astrology books, her random tweets, and then suing people, I would like to think that personally would affect her mentally if she was not doing well. That would be a lot on anyone's mind, because she's causing quite a few of these problems to herself. And I'm not talking about the police issue that she was suing them for. I think, that was all done and said for. She won that, and maybe she won that unfairly. Who knows? But regardless of this, it's a tragic situation, and I don't know if there is anything more sinister to this. It's kind of like a 50-50, because you really do look at some of the past pretenses and some of the subjects at hand that she was talking about before, and you can't help but feel like, well, anybody that talks about wild conspiracy theories, and the kind of people that go pretty batshit crazy into their theories, right? And it seemed to be she was kind of all over the place, and she did try to make a comeback of sorts with her books, and I think that she was very much involved in the LGBT community because she was openly bisexual. So I think that's great. I figured it has been quite some time since she's passed. Yes, and don't mind my burping. It has been some time since she has passed, but do you guys think it is something more sinister, or it's just a simple case of mental health? Like I said, I do give the biggest condolences to her husband at the time and her son's family and anybody that knew them, because suicide is never the option. It's very crazy to think that she would do something like that. So, I'd like to say to them, if they ever do stumble upon this video, I'm sorry for you guys, and I'm just simply talking about this whole subject, and it would be interesting to know if more people would come out or say their side or say anything about it, because there is kind of this audience with this whole subject where they're a 50-50 like myself. They believe it's something that tragically happened, and there's other people that think there's something more to it. And I don't know why it's not more discussed, considering that she was associated with Playboy. She was one of the few black playmates associated with that brand, and it is a very controversial topic at hand to begin with, and I can't help but feel, just a personal opinion of mine, that they weren't talking about this so much in the media or even the mainstream television on news or even the blogs, because when I look it up, there's just a few things on it, not many, I should say, and I can't help but feel it's because she's a woman of color and she's black, and that's why it did not get the media coverage it deserves. And I was also researching, she has some native blood in her, so rock on. She has some Cherokee in her, which I think is fantastic. So, regardless to say, I'd like to end this video and say, I don't know what to make of it. She had so many people she pissed off, and then she also had severe mental health issues. From my understanding and my opinions, from what I've read online, because most normal people don't just push their son out a high-rise building and then jump to herself as well. I mean, I just think that is very selfish of her, and just kind of a disgusting move on her part, and her husband has got to go through the emotions every day and think of the child he no longer has. So I'd like to know what your guys' thought is on this. Do you agree with me that it wasn't more of a bigger story because she's a person of color? Do you agree with the fact that maybe she did piss off a lot of people, and maybe you should just take a couple moments and research her for yourself, and maybe leave me a comment down below on what you think. So thank you for watching my video. Don't mind my big coat. I'm a little cold in here. Canada's weather does not know what to do. It's almost summertime and it's cold as shit out, so I don't know. I can't wait to go to a hot sunny country and be on the beach sometime. So anyways, thanks for watching my video. Please leave a comment down below on what you think of this whole ordeal, and if you can, get a keychain on my website, justafrenzy.com. That would be fantastic. If not, I understand, and I will be doing another video very soon with maybe perhaps a Playboy Playmate interview, if I can get my words right here. So keep coming back to check. I plan on doing more interviews, and I plan to ramble more about some Playboy mysteries. This is my first episode on Playboy mysteries, and I thank you for watching. Tune in next time. Have a great day, everybody.